We're going to be on in 2 seconds. Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Welcome to Etcetera Live on the Vibe. I'm your host, Kelly Barrett. Super excited today. We have Brian Vollmer, lead vocalist from iconic Canadian band Helix. Hey Brian, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. Can I do my normal introductory rap?
You go for it.
Okay. Hi, this is your Captain Brian Vollmer coming to you from the bowels of East London, Ontario. Foreign Legionnaires, Helix fans everywhere. This is it. Okay, that's it. We're here now.
Well, I've not had an intro like that ever before, Brian. That's awesome.
Well, you know, I do my blog from here every morning. It looks like hell behind me. It looks like a war zone. We moved 2 years ago from Planet Helix, and we've never really gotten over that yet.
Well, you were showing me some of the neat little collectible gadgets. You have a pretty interesting studio space. Brian, we have so much to talk about today because aside from the awesomeness that is Helix, 29 albums, you've been touring and playing and entertaining us all since 1974. And you've got some really, really neat stuff on the go. So you've definitely been taking advantage of the strange, which is what I call the last year. So I think we're going to just dive right in. And Brian, one of your new projects that I absolutely love is the Tristan Roby journey. Do you want to tell the fans and viewers a little bit about what that is?
Well, Tristan Roby is a young that boy that was hit while bicycling by a hit-and-run driver, left for dead, and he's basically paralyzed. And we got involved trying to raise money for him and his mother to send Tristan to Michigan for stem cell treatment in the hopes that maybe someday he might talk or walk again. So we dedicated the month of February to do that. We gave away a lot of Helix shirts to the cause. Plus, I had a lot of musician friends of mine, everyone from Danko Jones to Tim Hicks to Todd Kearns, Lear and Al Harlow. There was literally, I think, 13 bands. And we raised $17,000 for the cause. And money is still coming in. So
that's amazing. Right. And Brian, I love that you would use your status in the music industry, to give back and to do something for this, for this boy and his family. And people can still donate to this fund by checking out the Tristan Roby journey on Facebook if you're still interested in that. And $17,000, wow. The music community is a generous one, isn't it?
It is, and the fans and all the people associated with Tristan. I think there was a lot of paramedics and nurses that have a personal connection with him down at the hospital and at home with his mother that gave money. But there's just people that didn't know him at all and didn't know Helix at all and sent money in when they heard about it. So, as I said, a lot of good vibes all the way around. I'm an old hippie. I believe what goes around comes around.
Absolutely.
And, good vibes.
Good for you. And so can you give us an update on Tristan's health right now, Brian?
Well, he spent a bad month. He changed his medicine for something or other, and he started getting essentially epileptic fits, and he had to go back to the hospital. So he's just recently got back out last Friday. I think he came home. And so he's now got a new medicine, and they were going to try to stabilize him and still get him down by the end of the month to Michigan, but they have to stabilize his condition first. It's been hard on him, and it's been hard on his mother, Abby, and she's a real saint. Their whole apartment is turned into a big hospital room, and it's tough.
Right. For you, Brian, I love this story. I love it. It gives me the warm fuzzies, and the musicians that all sort of, came together for the concert, the benefit concert that raised the $17,000, which is well over the goal that you had set. Mm-hmm. So, and going back a little bit, all those albums and the touring, and we were just talking before the show, Helix was in fact one of the first bands to tour internationally. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that was like?
It was 1983. We just signed a Capitol EMI, and we started off touring on that album in the United States with Blackfoot Molly Hatchet. And then they threw a song with Motorhead on the Another Perfect Day tour, which was anything but. And after that tour run out, we started in Hartford, Connecticut, and it ended at Princess Club, First Avenue Club in Minneapolis. And then ICM just put us on with all sorts of different acts. ICM was our booking agency back then. And then Capitol bought us on the Lick It Up tour with Kiss. And to tell you the truth, we weren't really big Kiss fans in Helix. And we got the tour, and it cost 35,000 US. I remember that. And it started off in Lisbon, Portugal. And we came home after touring the States. We were home for like one day, and we did a video, and it was on the plane for Europe. 33 days, 13 countries in 33 days. So we go to Lisbon, Portugal, and it was the first date that Kiss ever played with their makeup off. And
wow.
We did the Lisbon date, and then they moved off. The next date was in Madrid. Well, I stayed behind to do interviews, and I took the Lusitania Express from Lisbon to Madrid. And me, the naive, hose-head Canadian, I figured, oh yeah, I'll get to Madrid. Somebody will know English. Wrong.
Not so much.
So I get to Madrid. I step off the train, and there's like about 50 gypsy kids just like right on my legs, just like pulling me. No money, no money, no mama, no papa. And I got in a cab, and unbeknownst to me, during my ride on the Lusitania Express, Kiss had decided to change hotels, and we were with kind of the Kiss entourage. So they moved us as well. So I get to Madrid, and they moved hotels, and I don't know. So believe it or not, the taxi driver knew where they, where they had moved to. So we went over there, and I remember there's a great big pit out behind the hotel. It was huge, and every day, every 15 minutes, these garbage trucks would pull up and dump garbage in this huge, almost like a field size behind the hotel. And all these gypsy kids would run out, and they go, and they're all barefoot, and they're running through, and they're picking through the garbage and shit, right? And so I see these kids one morning. I say, I'm going to be the hero. So I go back in. I change down $10 in a change. I come back out, and there's a little girl there. No money, no mama, no papa, right? So I give her a couple coins. Pretty soon there's like 30 kids there, and they're punching the shit out of each other, trying to fight over the money I'm giving them. Till finally I got the money left, eh? So I'm standing there, and I turn my I'm going, no money. I'm tapped out. So they all leave except the initial little girl, right? This little girl standing there, she's got a dirty face. She's crying. It's got money, no mama, no papa. I said, look, I don't have any more money. I'm sorry. I turned my pockets inside out. She looks at me and she goes, fuck you, mister. So that's how I remember the first time going to Spain with Kiss.
Welcome to Spain, Brian.
Welcome to Spain.
Wow.
First time we played Scotland on that tour too. We're looking for the hotel, so we pull in, right? And we're driving along this road in Scotland, and we see this old guy. He's walking along, and he's really drunk. And we stop and we go, hey, you know where such a hotel is? And he turns around, he goes, move your arse, I kick you in your bays, which I think move your ass or we'll kick you in the balls. So welcome to Scotland, same type of deal.
Brian, we were talking before the show about, just your travels and, some of the interesting people that you've met and, what an experience. And I'm wondering, is there ever a time, and I just love asking people this, when you become keenly aware that this is going to be something huge, and what is that like? When things start.
When it all took off for us, it had taken us so long to get to that point that it just all started to happen in like a whirl.
Great.
And for instance, I have Super 8 sound movies of us playing backstage at Nassau Coliseum with Rush. And we had just found out, first off, in the room, there's Barry Bergman, who managed Bob Halligan, who co-wrote Rock You, and there's other people in the room. Anyway, we just found out we had gone gold in Canada, and somebody laughed and joked, "Yeah, in 2 weeks we're gonna go platinum." And everybody goes, "Ah, ha, 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 ha." In 2 weeks we'll go platinum.
And there you go.
Flying every day, I was getting on an airplane, and once again, like we were kind of hose head. Like I was from a farm, so
Right.
I was kind of, and so all this stuff was like, I don't know, I couldn't grasp it at the time.
It must have just been surreal. Like, like you said, as a farm boy from Canada, what a great experience. And some of the people that you met, we were talking before the show about, Richard Pryor and some of the, and of course, Lemmy. You got to know Lemmy pretty well, and you had an interesting story. I was wondering if you would share that with the fans right now about, Lemmy's last days.
Well, this was told me by his drummer, who we played with a couple of years ago in Stockholm, Sweden, at Rock Classicer Live, I think it was called, right? And I guess Lemmy spent a lot of his last days at the Rainbow, and he was so famous for being at the Rainbow and being kind and talking to people, and it was easy to talk to him. People flocked down to the Rainbow just to see Lemmy. And so when Lemmy found out he was dying, he asked for the Pac-Man machine, which he played down there, if they would lend it to him to be installed in his apartment down the street in Sunset until he died, and then they could have the Pac-Man machine back. So they came down. They said, "No problem, Lemmy." So they brought the Pac-Man machine down, and they were installing it, and whoever was installing it looked over, and there's Lemmy, and he was leaning, he's sitting back on the couch, he's looking at the ceiling, he's going, "I hate life." He says, "I can't fuck anymore. I can't do drugs anymore. I fucking hate life. I think I'm just gonna fuck off." And he put his head back and he died. And that's when Lemmy died. That's what I heard. And which is
Wow. What a story,
a pretty funny story, because he died the way he lived. And when we were on the road, he said many funny things to me. And I remember several situations where just funny little things. I remember one time we were at Providence, Rhode Island, at a place, it'll come to me, the living room. It had black walls, black floors, black ceiling, black everything. And we're back in the dressing room. Remember they had chloroseptic? Remember chloroseptic you used to spray in your throat?
Right, yeah.
Well, anyway, Lemmy's got this chloroseptic, and he's going, "This stuff is really good for your throat. So I use this stuff all the time." He's going, chloroseptic.
Right out.
And geez, he was one of a kind. He was a smart guy, though. He was no dummy.
Yeah, you were saying very intelligent man, and all these interesting people that you've met. And I'm being very tongue in cheek here, but gee, Brian, you should almost write a book. And wait a minute, I think you are writing it.
I'm going to write my second book from the interviews I'm going to be doing over the next 6 months. Might actually take me longer, because the more I talk to people, the more I'm finding that I should talk to more people. So,
for sure.
But it's on the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit, which began around 1965, and mostly grew out of a little agency in Ontario called Dram, which worked out of Waterloo, Ontario. And it first handled bands like Major Hoople's Boarding House and Copper Penny and Charity Brown. And then it grew from one-nighters at colleges, universities, and high schools to bars. And from Waterloo, Ontario, it spread north and then east and then west until finally it reached both coasts. And Helix was the first band to travel to the East Coast and then the West Coast through the bars. And I make that distinction because some bands like Copper Penny flew out to the coast, but we actually went through the bars, and that's a different scenario altogether. You'd start off and you'd play 6 nights in, say, Toronto, and then from Toronto you'd go to Sudbury or somewhere like that up north. on the Sunday, and then play there for 6 nights and stay in the rooms there. And then from there, you go to Sault Ste. Marie. So it take you 8 hours on the Sunday to drive there, and then you play Sault Ste. Marie, and then on the Sunday you drive 12 hours to Thunder Bay, and from Thunder Bay, Winnipeg, from Winnipeg to Portage la Prairie, from there to Moose Jaw, Regina, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Calgary, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, then through the Crow's Nest Pass to Vernon, Penticton, and then finally Vancouver, Victoria, and then you branched out from all those markets once you got there and over the years.
And we were talking about it before the show, driving old school driving everywhere. Lots of hours on the
way to see this country is through the window of a car. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love driving. Absolutely. When I'm out there driving, I'll drive 12 hours straight. I don't care. I love it.
Right.
And I made many a time driven from BC to back home to Ontario, across the prairies. And so I know the area well. There's not too many places I haven't played in the country.
Right. Well, you will certainly have no shortage of material to draw from. And the book is going to be basically just about, road stories and different, is it not? The material is going to be like just sort of the craziness that is the road and the experiences and the people and...
Well, it's going to be more than that. I want to explain how the bar scene was a part of the social fabric of a lot of small towns and even cities across the country. Bands traveled from city to city back then. They had a far more eclectic view of the world, let alone the country. Think about it. Nowadays, bands don't travel with outside of a 100-mile radius of where they live. So you have a very myopic, blinkered type of view on life in the world because they never get beyond, I don't know, say the Toronto's outer city limits. Back then, we traveled to every little bumfuck place across the country. We partied with the locals. We drank with the locals. We ate with the locals, and a lot of times we slept with the locals. But my point here is that we really soaked up what the country was about. It's not the same in Prince Edward Island as it is in Alberta, obviously. But you had to go over in all those different markets. We played out in Fredericton at the Hilltop Pub. We played Sussex, Sackville. I remember in Shediac, New Brunswick, lobster capital of the world, I might add. We had a guy come up after the show. He says, you guys be pretty good if you had a fiddle player. And then we played out in Alberta and places like, the Alec Arms in Lethbridge. Is that where you were at? Where are you?
I'm in Lethbridge. Yes. The
first time we played the Alec Arms, a lot of people don't know this. We pulled into town and we set up and we did sound check. And we were doing all original songs. And Dave Phillips, the owner, came down. He says, "You're fired." He says, "You're fired. We don't want original music in this band." And we said, "Look we're here. We've set up. We've done sound check. You can't get another band. Let us stay till tomorrow night, and then we'll screw off. You don't even have to pay us for the night if you don't like the band." We played that night. The next night there was lineups, and and that was the way it was in Lethbridge. Lethbridge was one of our strongest markets out west. I still know some of the people by name that we used to hang out with there. Carl Rawl was one of the guys. I haven't seen him for years, but the Phillips brothers owned the place, and we look forward to going there. But also Calgary, peeking at the Beacon.
Right. Yeah.
Did you play the Beacon?
I didn't play the Beacon, but I know the name.
Well, we played the airline at the Beacon in Calgary. We played the Beverly Crest up in Edmonton, Convention in South, the Highwayman, all sorts of places. Eventually, we came to the Saddle Dome in Calgary and the Coliseum in Edmonton. But we played all those little places. Medicine Hat. But the only place we didn't play was Drumheller.
Oh, wow. maybe next time. Well, I'm glad that you think so highly of Lethbridge, and I'm surprised you didn't mention the wind because it's crazy windy here. And
What?
pardon me,
You're surprised it didn't mention what?
the wind. Everybody always
You know
mentions the
what?
wind.
I'm
It's
glad you mentioned that because
crazy.
I've always said that Lethbridge on that friggin' corner down there was more windy than in Chicago.
There's
That
a
wind,
wind tunnel.
that wind used to come up through the coulees there and nearly blow you off your goddamn feet.
Absolutely. So speaking of being on the road, Brian, and in your book, do you have a road story that stands out that you can share with us on the air?
Geez,
Note how I said on the air.
that was a bad time to say on the air to me because I've been swearing like a sailor. Geez, I got a lot of stories. What the hell? Name a person. You know.
Right.
Uh,
And apparently sometimes what happens on the road stays on the road. So maybe we want to save it for the book. I don't
no, I
know.
don't. It's all salacious. Salacious. I
Right.
remember we played in Lethbridge once, and we did shrooms, and we were up all night. This is a Saturday night. Went down to the coulees, and we sat under the bridge there. I got that on film, believe it or not. That's kind of a story, but that's when I sat down the coulees. But stories, okay, here's one. I don't know why all my stories involve drugs and booze. You tell me. But we were flying across the United States, and we had a stopover in Houston. And after about an hour, we got back on the plane, and Fritz sat down beside me, and I could see he was pissed. And I said, "Where you been?" He says, "Oh, you won't believe it." He goes, "I was in the bar." He says, "I just got drunk with Tom Jones and his son." I go, "Really? Tom Jones?" Because
As you do.
this is Tom, like Tom Jones. Yeah.
The Tom Jones.
I said, "I want to meet Tom Jones too." Well, anyway, we fly. We land in Los Angeles, and we're getting out the plane. We're walking up that little ramp, and I look over, and there's Tom Jones, and he's drunk. He's like blasted. He's got his hands in his pocket, stumbling along. And I'm going, "Excuse me, Mr. Jones really wanted to meet you, blah, 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 blah. You know, you might get drunk by a drummer." But and he turns around. He's very Welsh. He's from Welsh, right? Wales. And Welsh is hard to understand when you're sober. But when you're drunk,
Let alone drunk.
it sounds like gibberish. And he goes, right? We get to the top of the ramp, and there's his son with this little go-kart thingy, and somebody from the airport, and they whisked Tom Jones off. But Tom Jones said, "When you come to, when I come to Kitchener, you're all invited to Center in the Square." And I didn't go. I don't know why. But my manager went, and I think Brent went, and Tom Jones treated him like gold, gave him red
Wow.
carpet treatment, took him backstage, wined and dined him. And they said it was an absolutely amazing show. So that's my Tom Jones story. I like that.
Wow. I was wondering when you were telling the story, Brian, were you tempted to just go, hey, Tom, what's new, pussycat?
Yeah,
And
really.
so I'm wondering also when people see you, do you ever get the, hey, Brian, give me an R? Do you get that from people?
Yeah, and you know what I usually say? Give me a break.
Perfect. Good comeback. Good comeback. Hey, we're getting some comments in here,
No,
Brian.
I realize people want to hear that. They always take it good naturedly. Like I never get mad because people are asking me stuff like that. I
It's all in,
understand.
right? Right. We're getting some comments in here, Brian, and some yay, Brian, and awesome road story about Lemmy. One viewer fan named Perry Boyko wants to know if you and Helix can autograph his guitar the next time you play Saskatoon.
Sure.
Sure. And as far as that goes, will there be another tour once this range is over for Helix?
It depends if there's demand for us. We go wherever we just played with Monster Truck a couple weekends ago. So if the money's there, yeah, makes sense. We're there.
Well, I'm pretty sure there'll be a demand. So I think Perry, you're safe. I think you could probably get your guitar signed. May not be for a while, but yeah, I think the book.
We're pretty open with meeting the fans. We always have been. I think that's how Helix developed such a grassroots following over the years. We took time with our fans. We didn't just mouth platitudes. We actually do care about our fans. They are number one. They have kept us going all these years. Without them, we're nothing. So
Right.
we take time. When I get up in the morning, one of the first things I usually do is get on my computer and I go to Facebook and then I go to my Rogers account and I'm answering emails. And we sign a lot of stuff, even when people mail it in, although I think we're going to stop that because it just becomes I get too much stuff here and it gets lost and stuff. And then I get stressed out.
Right. It becomes a full-time job pretty much.
Yeah, because, it's not just simply signing it. The guys are all over Southern Ontario. So it means I have to store the stuff here. And then when I go to practice, I got to haul it to Cambridge and haul it in the house, get all the guys to sit around and sign it. I know it doesn't sound like much, but usually when we get together, there's like a million things we're doing, and suddenly we're doing this, and then it gets back in the car, and then you got to take it to the post office and blah, 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 blah. So,
Yeah, the logistics involved are pretty huge for sure. So,
yeah, and we don't want to screw up because, we do care about fans getting the stuff. We've also had a difficult time with our merchandise company over the last couple of years because especially through COVID, nobody's showing up for work. So, stuff goes to get mailed out, and because they don't have enough people to man the shop, so it gets out of our control. So, and that's about it on that topic.
Right. So, there's some other interesting ventures that you've had too, Brian, and you had a little foray into acting. With some other famous Canadian icons. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with the Trailer Park Boys?
Well, the connection between us and the Trailer Park Boys started some years ago when Archie Gamble, who was my drummer at the time, came to me and told me about the show and the episode Closer to the Heart, which had the little rap there with, I think it was Bubbles starting off the show talking about Helix, and then Ricky talking about Helix. And so I contacted Mike Clattenburg and I offered to come out on my own dime to Halifax if he'd let me come down and watch him film the show because I'd never seen a TV series film before. And he said, "Oh, yeah, we'd love to have you here." So I flew out. They picked me up with a limousine and they took me down and they were filming an episode called, I Think You Pissed Yourself, Mr. Leahy. And I met all the guys and I got all these scripts signed and stuff. And I was there for about 2 days and it was just a wonderful time I'll never forget. And then they took me back out to the airport in a limousine. And before I got in the plane, though, I decided to put my camera back inside my luggage. And when I did, I found out that guess what they put in my luggage?
I don't want to know.
Take a guess.
I don't have a clue. Your Slash doll? I don't know.
A 14-inch tinfoil penis.
Who could have guessed that? Good times.
Hoping to set off the friggin' metal detector alarm. No doubt.
Get busted with that at the airport.
So I thought that was pretty funny. And all the girls were all like bent over laughing, right, when they see me pull this thing out of my luggage. I went, "Not mine, not mine."
It's the drummers. Yeah. Well, that must have been a really cool experience too. And then also in 2005, you were inducted into the London Music Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm, yes.
What a cool experience that must have been as well.
We're going to have a small little acoustic show down there and be officially inducted. I'm going to be giving some more of the stuff that I've collected to the hall. I'm going to loan it to them. I actually have a poster from when we played with Copper Penny at Wonderland Gardens. Wonderland Gardens was a famous venue here in London. Everybody played there. I think Guy Lombardo played there. So I have a lot of memorabilia from that time, and I'm going to lend it to them. And I'm talking to Mario that runs the London Hall of Fame, and he's been connecting me with a lot of people for my book and the Patreon site. So
great. And so when do you think the book will be out, Brian?
Well, the rate I'm going, probably 2 years from now, seriously, because I want to do it properly and I want to make sure it's researched properly. as I said before, I'm starting off with my own experiences, having been in Helix from 74
Yeah.
on the road till we got signed in 1983, and then we went back on the road around 1989 again, and occasionally we still play clubs, not very often, but there's still a remnants of the bar scene out there, but there's not the connectivity that there was before, where you could play right across the country. And that was the exciting thing about it. You could be a rock and roll gypsy, and if you were a young musician, live on the road and never go home. It was every musician's dream to get out there, practice your craft, and live the life, and to see the country and travel.
Right.
For me, as a kid off the farm who never went anywhere, it was
Right.
like Huckleberry Finn. I remember the first time I went to Northern Ontario, looking down Gasoline Alley at that last light before it went into darkness, and thinking to myself, I wonder what's down that road. And I don't say that as a joke. I mean that very seriously. When I came in a place like Edmonton, they had the images stuck in my mind forever. It was like going to another planet. It was like going to Jupiter. I'd never been anywhere before in my life, and it was just wow. And I couldn't wait to get home and tell all my friends about going to Jasper, Alberta, and driving through the Rocky Mountains and seeing Vancouver, and playing beside the Forum at the Mustache Club, and all the wonderful things that we did back there in the circuit. And there was an abundance of places to play. Nowadays, you're lucky if there's one place in your town where a band can play, and everybody's trying to play there.
Right.
Back then, there was like dozens.
There was. And Brian, we were talking about this before the show, and you're so right. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be on the road for 20 years, like straight, no fixed address. And how blessed are we that we were, that, I mean, you obviously on a higher scale, but that we were so fortunate to be able to do that. And it's harder for new people starting out today, for the young singers, songwriters, musicians that are trying to make a go of it today. So with the new climate of things, what type of advice would you give a viewer that might be watching that's trying to break into the business?
Well, first and foremost, you have to do it because you love doing it. And you got to do it for the right reasons. And the right reasons are for music and to perform and those type of things. If you're in this business for money and that'll only take you so far. If you want longevity in a career, then it's like that Aerosmith song. It's not the destination, it's the journey. So enjoy every day. I look back at those days in the bars where we were dirt poor, working in for $40 a week to $90 a week for many years. And there's some of the most special memories that I hold dear after all these years. The friendships I made in the bar, some of those people aren't alive anymore. And traveling, like I said, looking out the window of the car at Canada, at the window of the car, and traveling to new places and remembering those first experiences of pulling into those towns, and pretty special. I've been, like I said, very lucky to have experienced all that. And nowadays, I live a very comfortable life, and it's all because of rock and roll.
Great. Well, it involved a lot of talent and a lot of hard work. And as you said, paying your dues on the road. And I think that's really great advice. You have to really, you really have to sort of want it with everything that you have. And I like what you said too. If you're just getting in it to get the, play the guitar on the MTV and get the girls, that could be a pretty short journey, but to really be passionate about the music. And I think it's not so much what you do, it's who you are. I think eventually it's not what you do, it's just who you are. And it gets in your blood, and I think
the difference nowadays, once again, is that you can't do it all week long, every week, and that's a real detriment to the music. So I tell my students now, try to have a backup job, like some other source of income to get you through. Back then you could live on, even though we were making such a small amount, we were out there. We depended on friends to take us to supper, and we cooked craft dinner 50 different ways. Somehow we survived. But we were able to travel right across the country. And we played every night. we lost our voice, then we learned how to sing without losing our voice. And we learned how to change guitars in the middle of a song without stopping the set, and how to introduce songs, and how to structure a set, and how to entertain people, and how to look forward at the audience and not look at your watch or look back at your band members, but to look forward, how to work an audience, how to choose the right songs for your set. And the list went on. And that was our training ground. It was our school of hard knocks.
For sure.
And it produced a different breed of musicians.
It did,
Even
yeah.
our outlook on our original songs, I think it broadened our outlook because we experienced more in life.
Absolutely. And, I was speaking just now, Brian, you were speaking about, blowing vocal cords out and whatnot. And another interesting fact about you that not everybody might know is that you teach vocals in London. You teach the bel canto vocal method, which is a really rare art form.
It is. It's a dying art. And I'm one of the last people in the world to teach it, truly solely by accident. In 1976, I was diagnosed as having nodes or polyps on my vocal cords. I was told I would never sing again. And my manager at the time sent me to a voice coach in Hamilton by the name of Edward Johnson. And he taught everybody on the circuit in Ontario back then, from Major Hoople's boarding house to Copper Penny, Edward Bear, Gilmore of Triumph, Andy Curran of Coney Hatch, myself. And the reason being was everybody was blowing their voice out by singing 3 to 5 sets a night, 6 to 7 nights a week, plus traveling and not sleeping and drinking and doing drugs and everything that musicians do. And so they'd all end up at Ed's studio in Hamilton, because Ed was the only one that taught bel canto, or bel voce, which means in Italian, beautiful voice. And the key to bel canto is the act of inhalation, which is taking breath into your head as you sing. And the reason that's important is because inhalation is the only way you can sing without having tension on the vocal cords. All these singers like Adele, Rod Stewart, Stevie Nicks, Duritz of the Counting Crows, that are blowing their throats out, getting nodes, losing their voice. It's all because of tension down here from pushing, especially on high notes, because high notes require for the vocal cords to vibrate at a faster frequency. So that's why singers always hurt their voices on the high notes. And anyway, they'd all end up with losing their voices and end up at Ed's doorstep down in Hamilton, and Ed would fix their voices up. And that's what happened to me. And that's how what led me to not only learn the technique, but in 1989, I was basically homeless, couch surfing, and Ed taught me to be a teacher, or because, like I said, I needed a job.
Right.
And then I slowly got into it. Now I've been teaching, I don't know, what is it, almost 40 years.
Is that right? Hey. And have you been able to teach during the pandemic over the last year?
Yeah, now and then, but not too much. It's closed down now, so you're not supposed to have people over here.
Right. Right. And something else I'd like to talk about, Brian, is your Patreon site, which is coming up in, I think, around the same time as the book is coming out.
Well, the book is going to be derived from the Patreon site. Initially, I sat down and I started writing. I thought, well, what's the point of this? Because by the time I get through all the interviews, I might have to rewrite everything. Because the more I talk to people, the more information I'm getting. So I think I'm going to collect the interviews on film up until about September. In the meantime, we're going to try to put together episode number 1. The Patreon site will probably be 2 or 3 videos a month. So it will require editing. And as the host of the show, I kind of am the glue that will connect all the different interviews. So we'll be talking about all sorts of things like eating in the rooms. Being in the, you tell me, what's your favorite story about eating in the rooms, or your favorite restaurant story?
Oh, we had a time where I just got sick of eating bad food at truck stops and whatnot, and so we ended up packing around like a tickle trunk, and we had a little microwave and a hot plate, and I had spices, and we had a toaster oven. And I tell you, Brian, I would cook up like 3 course Greek meals in the room, which the hotel hated, of course, because it just everything smelled like garlic. But boy, you get to a point where craft dinner starts to sound good because it's just not road food, and so yeah, we would go out on Sundays, if we didn't have to travel too far, and grab some beverages, of course, and whip up this like I said, a three course Greek meal right in the room, just with our little kitchen, our little makeshift kitchen, and
Well,
other
we had
than
a
that, a lot of
and
times it was
yeah. Sorry, go
a lot of
ahead.
times no, it's okay. A lot of times it was like, hey, there's 2-for-1 hot dogs at 7-Eleven. Yay!
Yeah.
I still can't eat a hot dog to this day, but so the Patreon site will be coming out in 2022, probably along with the book, and they're gonna be intermingled. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's going to take us to at least September. I have scheduled flights for myself and 2 cameramen and my buddy Randy's coming with us. He's our merchandiser and my best friend. Randy, by the way, is related to Earl Haywood, who just got inducted into the London Hall of Fame as well.
Right.
Earl Haywood was a famous country singer, and he is in the Canadian Country Hall of Fame. And Randy's also related to Gordy Tapp, who was on Hee Haw. Remember Hee Haw?
Oh, I do remember Yeehaw.
Gordy Tapp singing, where are you tonight? How could you leave me here all alone? I searched all over and I thought I found true love. You met another and you were
You were
gone.
gone. I remember that song.
You know what? That's anyway. We're flying out there, and I think the first day we're going to probably interview Lee Aaron,
Right.
and then maybe the Kickaxe guys. They'll be in the same area, and then we're going to hop over to the island and see Al Harlow of Prism and
Right.
Sarah Smith. I'm hoping to get a hold of Bill Henderson of Chilliwack. So, and then from there, we're going to jump across to Winnipeg on the way back, talk to George Belanger, hopefully Spider Sanuv, and a few other people. We're interviewing not only musicians, but also roadies, I don't
Strippers.
care, strippers, bikers, you name it, promoters, managers, club owners, anybody that was attached to the scene back then, fans. Especially
Right.
want to hear stuff from fans and their
For sure.
viewpoint. But I want to get people around the late 60s, early 70s. We started in 74, and there's a little gap in there I want to find out about.
Right. Well, I was just thinking when you were talking about, I love the fact that you're not just trying to interview, well-known artists, that you want the opinions from, the everyday people, the club owners and the strippers and the fans and
Well,
the musicians that were bar bands,
I want to paint a picture of what it was like
or whole
in
picture.
a small town when the band rolled in on a Monday night.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
It had to do with the social fabric of the town. When you think about it, when a band would pull into a place like Clinton or Seaforth or even Listowel, Ontario, half the town would turn out in the Monday night at some point to just drop in for a beer or two and check out the band. And if the band was good, they'd come back,
You
and
come
if
back on the weekend,
on the weekend, that's where people socialized.
for
I don't know where
sure.
they socialize now, to tell you the truth.
I was just
Probably
kind
a
of
park.
jokingly thinking in my head that after what you just said a while ago, Brian, it was probably like, Helix is in town, hide your daughters.
Right.
To some degree.
It drew people together, though. There was a certain,
It sure did.
and I want to get that across, and things that kids don't know about today, like Saturday afternoon matinees.
Yeah. Oh, I used to dread those.
If you said that to a young musician nowadays, they go, what the hell are you talking about? Saturday
Right?
afternoon matinee. I hated those damn things. I don't know about
Oh,
you, but like
dreaded.
usually Friday night was like whoopee night, and
You're
the
always
next day
hungover.
you feel like shit. You get roll out of bed half hung over or something, and you hardly talk, and you have to go to this damn matinee for a bunch of drunks. You
Right.
know,
I remember.
and
I
then
remember
play that
the
night,
matinee.
and then play that night again.
They were brutal. I remember actually, funny story, doing a matinee. I think it was in Edson, Alberta, and they were doing meat draws while we were playing. And I thought, I'm pretty sure I was hungover because that was what happened back then. And I thought they're giving away meat while I'm singing. Like, what is wrong with this picture? But happy to do it. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. I wouldn't change a thing, and I'm sure you wouldn't
Yeah,
either.
I love the road too, and that era of Canadian music will never be repeated. It was a time when very lax drinking laws. There was no such thing as cell phones or all night TV. You
Right.
rented a VHS tape, and you also rented the machine by putting down a $250 deposit
Right. I
because
remember that.
nobody owned the machine. If you did,
And
you
they're
were rich.
huge.
So there was a lot of factors that added into this. There was no AIDS. It was pretty promiscuous back then in the bars. A
Right.
lot of them were meat markets. And once again, added into the fabric of the town. There was nothing else to do. There was no other entertainment. So, of course, you're going to be at the bar checking out the band.
For sure.
Nowadays, there's like video games, you name it, all
Right.
sorts of stuff.
Well, how great that you've been able to be a part of it for so many years, and to still be, and the fans have just transcended generations and years, and people. I mean, I Helix is one of the bands that I call like the soundtrack to my misguided youth, is what I normally say, but it's the truth, and people still like it. Still gets high radio airplay. What an honor that is to have that type of longevity, which doesn't happen, I don't think, very often anymore.
It is, and people connect songs to, like you said, a certain point
Memories.
in life. The first time they smoked a joint, first time they had sex, first time they went to school, first dance here, and whatever, right?
There's
And
heartbreak.
and when they hear that song, that memory comes back. And
It sure
I know
does.
myself because there's certain songs in my life I identify with, and I have the same feeling.
Right. And so what's Brian Vollmer listening to?
What do I listen to?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm listening to a Monster Truck and Ghost.
Are you influenced by anybody? I guess is more my question.
Oh, who am I influenced by? Well, my
Yeah.
influences are Joe Cocker, Steve Marriott, John K. Steffenwolf, Burton Cummings, David Bowie, Mick Jagger.
Right. Yeah, I'm a diehard Bowie fan myself,
Ian
and
Gillan.
right. And
I
a
was
lot of
lucky
good
enough
Canadian.
to tour with Ian Gillan, so.
Is that right, eh? And so when was the last time you performed other than a few weeks ago? Were you able to perform right up until the
Well,
shutdown?
2019 was our best year ever.
Right.
We toured right across the country. We did some Northern Ontario gigs for the Cree Nation that were just amazing. Not for the fact that there's a lot of people or anything like that, but just the fact they were so far north. They're in the middle of Nowhereville. We went to Round Lake. We only played for about 125 natives, but I'll never forget that gig as long as I live. Flying
Right.
out of there late at night with everybody saying goodbye. People were just so nice to us. We flew out and seen a line of forest fires from the sky as the sun set off to the west. We played Chisasibi, Quebec, way up in James Bay. But we also played over at Rock Barcelona in Madrid, Spain. And that was 70,000 people over 3 days. We played with Def Leppard, ZZ Top, Dee Snider, Sebastian Bach. Everybody was there. Then we went and played Malmo, Sweden at the Skogs Roadjet Festival. That was with Airborne, The Darkness, who are friends of ours. We played with them before. Really nice bunch of guys. And Glenn Hughes, who blew me away. Guy's in his 70s. He's singing Highway Star. Perfect. And they treated us like gold. But we played right across the country that year, and then the next year we didn't play one gig.
Right. Well, it's so great that you had that, that year in 2019 before the, with the shutdown. What a great year to, we're
Well,
getting a lot of
because
comments in here, Brian. Sorry, we're
excuse me.
getting a lot of comments in here. Do you have time for, I know we're just about getting close to be running out of time here. There's a couple
Yeah.
of questions and comments here if you have time for that.
Oh, sure.
Ian Wright, okay, cool. Ian Wright says, I met Brian face to face in the 80s thanks to a great stage dive. There's sounds like Ian's got a story right there too. Sheldon Shikaliak says, welcome, Brian. I saw Helix and Haywire on the first tour at the Edmonton Convention Center. Loved that. Jeff Demis Cunningham says, fantastic stuff. Jeff Demis is another musician that will be coming on the show at some point. And then there was a question, and maybe we'll close off with this. Perry Boyko, the same guy that wants you to sign his guitar, is just curious, what year was it when you had the severe accident on tour?
When Paul was killed?
Right.
And what was the question again?
What year was that?
Oh, geez. I'm not good at death dates.
Right.
People still come up to me like 30 years later and go, oh, I'm so sorry about it. I go, what are you talking about? Oh, this is the anniversary of Paul Day. I'm going, you're joking.
Right.
So, yeah, I want to remember that date.
Right.
Not.
So there's your answer, Barry. It was 30 some years ago.
I think it was around 93. Like, to me, death is just a passage into the next life, first off. And I remember the good times with Paul. I don't remember the day. The day he died was a terrible day. I remember everything about that day, but I don't really want to get into it. It's a personal thing, and it's a personal thing for his wife too, Connie. She's now remarried to a very nice guy, but I think it upsets her too when people go on the internet and Facebook and they just start. They're well-meaning, but it invades in her privacy, and so I don't really remember that date. But I'm not good at dates to begin with anyway. I remember, I don't even remember my birthday some years.
I know. It's like, what day is it?
Well, a couple of times I've been on tour and everybody go, hey, congrats, happy birthday. I go, oh yeah, it's my birthday day. And I remember
it's been like that during this pandemic. It literally, like, what day is it today? I actually bought myself a T-shirt that says, what effing day is it? Because it's kind of like that.
From the hockey game, I go, okay, the Leafs play in 2 nights. It's a Saturday or something, But yeah, what else are I going to say? Yeah, I remember my birthday, June 30th, and then it's Canada's birthday, and this is my wife's birthday. And I remember my daughter's birthday, and that's about it.
Well, that's all you need to know.
I kind of know my grandson's birthdays in February sometimes. So,
well, I think the important one is that you remember the wife's birthday, the whiff, as we were calling earlier.
Well,
that's the big one.
I even got our wedding date wrong in my first book, so I was on a short list for a while after that. And see, women have a longer memory than a friggin' elephant. So,
like we do so.
So I constantly reminded about that gaff.
that one time.
That one time.
Well, Brian, it's just been terrific talking with you, and you're delightful. You can come back anytime. You can come back when your book comes out.
I'll meet you next time we come to Lethbridge, one of my favorite cities out west.
Great.
I'll have you in the right. I love the city. I just even love walking down in the coulees. Down in what's that park called? Isn't it Fort Whoop-Up or down there?
There's Fort Whoop-Up, yeah, it is one of the parks.
Yeah,
the coulees.
Going down, what's it, Fort Whoop-Up Park or something down in the coulees?
I don't, there's so many parks around the coulees, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but I'll make you a deal. If you come back to Lethbridge.
We're down by the river there. You know where all the trails are by the river.
Old Man River, yeah.
Yeah, down there. That's where I like going walking when I'm in town.
It's beautiful. It really is. And I was going to say, I'll make you a deal. You come to Lethbridge and I'll have you and the wife over for dinner. How's that?
Okay. All right.
You got yourself a deal. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brian. Hey, do you want to end with a little slash? Do you want to bring your little doll out?
My little doll. Oh yeah.
You guys got to see this. There's Brian has a ton of collectibles in his basement. Then so to bid you adieu, there he is.
You're a slash. Take it. He was on my wall.
Brian's got a ton of cool little collectibles we were looking at before the show.
Really.
All right, Brian, thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming down. This has just been awesome, and continued
Thanks for
success.
having me. I'm going to dig a trench now. So.
Or you're going to dig a trench. All right, then.
Well, a lot of people don't realize it, but yeah, I think they think that people like me just sit around all day long making music or something. But there are other things we do in life too, like normal things like mow the
Grocery shopping.
lawn, fix the fence, pay the bills. And right
Right?
now I'm digging a trench out the back of my property. So
Cool
anyway, you
stuff.
should be able to handle a shovel.
Well, you got to be handsome and handy, right?
Well, my solo album was Get Your Hands Dirty. And that's what that's all about. Like I've had times during Helix where times got tough. I wasn't afraid to waste a little blood, sweat, and tears to get where I wanted to get to make my music. And I never forgot that.
Well, that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
So.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, and continued success.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. It's been my pleasure, Brian. You take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Once again, Brian Vollmer from Helix. Thank you so much. Interesting guy. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Stay tuned for the book that will be coming out, the Golden Age of Canadian Bar Circuit. And I have an exciting announcement coming up in about half an hour for next week's guest. So until we see you then, stay safe and sane. Take care. Bye-bye.